Welcome to my unofficial guide to Mad Tea Party. This is a niche topic that's hard to dig up information on, so I really just want this video to be available as a resource for anyone in the future who hears about Mad Tea and wants to know more. None of the content that I'm going to feature in this video is mine. I will credit everyone on screen when I am using their pictures, videos or artworks. In the description there is a link to a sources document where everything will be listed in order of appearance. So if you want to find the original version of anything in this video, you can check the timestamp of whatever you're looking for, and find the corresponding link in the document. And finally, this video is not intended to belittle anyone who participated in Mad Tea Party or any of the fans who gathered around it. I will definitely poke fun at it here and there, but I have become genuinely and unironically enamored with this band, so consider this my love letter to Mad Tea. Also, I hope you enjoy this robot man's voice because you're stuck with him for the next hour or so. Our story begins back in 2011, when Disney California Adventure premiered their first real attempt to liven up the Backlot, officially known as Hollywoodland, an awkward and often overlooked section of the park. When the park had first opened in 2001, the area was originally billed as the Hollywood Pictures Backlot, and was themed after the 1930s golden age of cinema. From the very beginning the area was poorly received. In the first couple years, several attractions and restaurants were completely scrapped due to low attendance. The Backlot sort of stumbled through its first 9 years of service without really developing an identity beyond just being the movie-themed part of the park, which really isn't saying much because it's Disney, you know, the company that makes amusement parks themed around movies. After years of cycling attractions in and out of the Backlot, the park announced a new attraction to tie in with that summer's World of Color theme. Disney described the event as a new high-energy experience called Glow Fest. As the sun goes down, colors burst to life and music starts to play from a brightly lit stage that seems to glow. I don't know why they say this, the stage really did glow. Dancers and world music performers create a fun vibe that you will only find at Disney California Adventure Park. The event covered both the Backlot and Sunshine Plaza, but most of the aesthetic changes made were actually just projections of different colored lights everywhere, and in the light of day it was painfully apparent that nothing had really been changed aside from some garish wallpaper and a few pop-up attractions. Glowfest wasn't even really conceptualized by Disney themselves, and was actually outsourced to Create Inc. And it's kind of obvious when you see just how generic most of the live performers were. None of them were face characters in the sense that actors dressed as Anna or Elsa for a princess meet and greet would be. Most of them were just dressed as miscellaneous colorful people. One of them strangely looks like a Party City version of a Mad Hatter, but that's besides the point. The closest thing that Glowfest had to a central show was a Bollywood-themed dance group that performed occasionally, but overall the event was really more of a party than anything else. They had a loosely themed bar with even more loosely themed drinks, meaning they were served in neon cups. For all intents and purposes it was really just a family-friendly party that livened up that part of the park, at least after dark. Despite its shortcomings, from everything I've heard, Glowfest was actually pretty well received among parkgoers. It only ran for 4 months from June to September of 2010, but it was at least remembered fondly for bringing something new to this neglected corner of the park, and for trailblazing this new event format that DCA would iterate on for years to come. A month later, in October of 2010, Glowfest's unofficial replacement was announced to be Electronica, which if you can't tell is based on the Tron universe. Following Glowfest's lead, the new party had music, dancing, drinks, lots of LED lights, and a variety of entertainment options. There was Flim's Arcade, which had lots of vintage games like Space Invaders, Galaga, that sort of thing. I've heard some high praise about the theming of Flim's Arcade and how nostalgic it felt to be in. I think it garnered a lot of fondness over time as regular parkgoers spent more time there. From what I understand, there was also a separate gaming station outside the arcade where you could play some more contemporary games from the Tron franchise. As far as performances, there was a choreographed pre-party opening dance sequence. There were also these bizarre hired dancers that were stuck on these elevated platforms, dancing their hearts out for their entire shift. Sounds exhausting. Another fan favorite was Laser Man, a performance where this guy in a little jumpsuit and goggles swings a laser around to a choreographed routine. When Electronica was originally launched in October 2010, it was intended as a sort of tie-in promotional event with the movie Tron Legacy, which would release only a couple months later, in December 2010. The Backlot's film-oriented infrastructure came in handy for once, because the daytime showing of Muppet Vision 3D could very easily be converted to a Tron Legacy preview at night when the party was in full swing. When the movie actually dropped in December, 2 months after Electronica's debut, it didn't do great. It was technically a commercial success, but it doesn't seem like it was remembered nearly as fondly as the original. I'm sure lots of devoted Tron fans and Electronica regulars really enjoyed it, and all the power to them, but Disney's promotional event had essentially served its purpose at this point. Electronica was originally set to close in April 2011, which coincided with the DVD release of the movie. But against all odds, it was such a fan-favorite event, that Disney decided to extend it for almost an entire year past the original closing date. So in total, Electronica actually ran for about a year and a half, mostly off of its own merit, as just a fun thing to do. The biggest shortcoming of Electronica, and I think the reason for its eventual demise, was the fact that it was chained to the Tron franchise. The sci-fi atmosphere was sort of polarizing to guests. They either loved it or just took no interest in it at all. While Disney definitely noted that it had garnered a much more devoted following than Glowfest ever could, I think they wanted to take this to the next level of mass market appeal. That was the plan, at least. Another gripe that Disney seemed to have with Electronica was that it was taking up a lot of the park. The pre-show got moved around a couple of times, but overall the party occupied the entire span of the backlot, which is a lot of space, even if it was previously underutilized. Although Electronica didn't close until April of 2012, Disney had of course been scheming up a replacement attraction for months by the time Electronica got the boot. As early as January 2012, flyers started showing up backstage, auditions for a new event called Mad Tea Party. Mad Tea Party was based on Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. The movie had been released 2 years before Mad Tea Party opened, near the very beginning of Disney's live-action remake frenzy. This was back when live-action remakes were still new, and hadn't yet earned universal ire from audiences. Although the movie has since come under some less favorable criticism, it was by all means a wildly successful commercial venture, grossing over $1 billion in the box office. Unlike Tron, while the movie definitely had a core following, mostly of general Alice in Wonderland enjoyers, I wouldn't say that it had the same kind of fandom that Tron had at the time. The movie does have a fun whimsical aesthetic that I could see working well for a theme park attraction, but Disney chose to go with a rather transformative take on the Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland concept. Rather than sticking to the woodland fantasy ambience that some of the movie had, they opted for more of an alternative vibe. It was very 2000s and kind of difficult to pin down. I'm sure there's a really specific something core name for it, but I think you'll get the vibe once we get into it. The entrance to the party was this huge steampunk archway that they called the Rabbit Hole, which was in the middle of the Backlot, or Hollywoodland, as Disney had recently tried to rebrand it. Here you would be greeted by the party's bouncers, Tweedledee and Tweedledum, who were played by these tall bald men with outrageous accents. They also had Dee and Dum tattooed on the back of their heads, and wore these amazing platform boots. I love this clip of them looking confounded during a Spanish interview.
Todos se están divirtiendo. De hecho, tienen unas reglas.
When you entered, you would immediately be faced with the side of the main stage, which is kind of odd, but it was really the only way for the stage to fit in this weird little space that Disney had decided to cram the party into. There was also an entrance on the other side, which was good for crowd flow, but sadly wasn't nearly as themed. They kept the arcade building from Electronica and redecorated it as the Mad Arcade, which had similar attractions to Flynn's, but with more of a carnival theme rather than retro video games. All of the games you could play here were themed to Alice in Wonderland, some of them more awkwardly than others. Although it wasn't as beloved as Flynn's had been, it was nice that they at least still had the option of an arcade, which is more welcoming to young kids and other guests who would otherwise be alienated by the party. Another holdover from Electronica was the drink counter. Alcohol was really a central part of these parties' branding, mostly because this was intended as an end-of-the-day, let-loose sort of gathering. The bar was called Drink Me, which doesn't really make sense as a name, but I suppose that was the best they could do. Their offerings included drinks such as the Croquetini and the Mad Hatito. Some of the drinks came with those fun little LED ice cubes, and they of course were served in special souvenir cups that still pop up on eBay every now and then. There was another area of the Mad Tea Party called the House of Cards, which hosted both a secondary smaller stage, and a lounge area. The lounge part had fun plasticky seating, air hockey, that sort of thing. As for the House of Cards stage, the structure over the platform was actually kind of cool. It was built to look like a house of cards. The illusion worked a lot better in the dark than it did in the bright California sun, but at least it looked cool some of the time. Rather than the pre-show dance troupe that Electronica had, Mad Tea Party hosted a handful of performances that occasionally broke up the DJ sets. They had their own troupe of hip-hop dancers called the Hottest Deck in Town, who would perform on the House of Cards stage.
Wow, fantastic, baby.
They had a few different sets that they performed over the years, most of them pretty similar in style, but it was nice that they revamped the song selection every now and then. Another performance that would happen on this stage was an aerial acrobatics duet. I've seen it referred to as Queens of the Sky, Queens of the Night, Dueling Queens, even just aerial act. I don't really know which one is the official name of the performance, unless it changed at some point and I just didn't get the memo. But either way, this show consisted of two performers climbing around on a spinning metal cube while hype music plays. My personal favorite performance that happened on the House of Cards stage was this menacing headless rainbow slinky thing. His name was, Who Are You? I love this act so much. At all points in the show I can so clearly picture a sweaty little guy crawling around in there, flinging these limbs around. The ends aren't even covered by anything, so if you catch a glimpse at the right angle you can actually just see into the suit. Incredible. As far as DJs go, Mad Tea Party was pretty similar to Electronica. Some of them were even the same DJs just with new costuming. They were dressed head to toe in white suits, and had big light-up rabbit ears that they would attach to either their headphones or their backwards snapback. They were all called the White Rabbit DJ even though there were several of them, and they would sometimes be announced by their actual full names. This is sort of an aside, but whoever was the White Rabbit DJ for the night would reside in a little booth up on the main stage that was styled to look like a big teacup. There was a matching giant green teapot that was also a guitar which stayed in the center of the stage. These set pieces were genuinely so ugly, especially the teapot. I can't believe that thing was a centerpiece of the event. The DJ's job was basically to cover all of the time in between these various acts, and some fans from Electronica definitely came to Mad Tea Party for this part of the experience. In general, dance circles were very common, and also extremely awkward. This event was technically an all-ages party, but nothing made it more apparent than the dancing. There would almost always be some young adult performing a dance in the middle while a strange mix of their peers, super young kids and older adults, would watch them. There were so many people who would just stand completely still with their phones out, filming these people dancing, which I appreciate because it means there's lots of footage for me to comb through, but it nonetheless made the vibe very strange in the all-ages dance circle. I do think that this would be a really overstimulating activity for kids, especially after a full day of slogging around the park, but I've seen plenty of footage of kids breaking it down on the dance floor, so I guess it worked for some families. At this point you may be thinking that this sounds like a pretty stacked event. Between the DJs, the dancers, the aerial thing, this is already an arguably more elaborate party than Electronica was, all packed into this much smaller section of the backlot. But we're not done yet, there's still the main act. Oh my god, the band. What to say about the band? Firstly, I don't know why it has no name. Everything else gets a fun in-universe name, the Hottest Deck in Town, the White Rabbit DJ, whatever the aerial act's real name is. But these guys are just called the Mad Tea Party Band. I can't lie, they played a pretty abysmal set of songs. It was mostly a mix of 2010's pop and classic rock. This is probably the biggest hurdle for any new fans to get over, especially as the songs get more and more dated by the year. But once you can convince yourself that you can actually enjoy watching them perform moves like Jaguar for the millionth time, you're set. For your convenience, I'm gonna put as complete a list as possible of all the songs they played, but there might be a few missing. I'm basing this mostly off of Nick Turgeon's Remembering Wonderland project. in which he credits Olympia on Tumblr for keeping a full set list. I couldn't find the specific blog, but thank you Olympia, and Nick as well. Each of the band members are dressed as different Alice in Wonderland characters, styled in that same sort of edgy 2000s Tumblr aesthetic. This was the concept art that the band's look was based on, which was translated into physical costumes surprisingly faithfully, considering how goofy this picture is. The band consisted of 6 characters, but there were anywhere from 3 to 7 regular performers who could fill each of those roles. So they weren't really a band in the traditional sense, so much as actors portraying the different members of this band. They would mix and match the performers a lot, so you could always get a different lineup depending on the night. Some lineups gelled really well, or maybe the performers just shared the same availability, but there were certain arrangements of performers that you would see together quite often at the shows, which was great for letting them develop some chemistry as a group. A lot of these frequent groupings were what led to the bits that would eventually get added to the show, and they also let the regular attendees start to develop favorite squads of performers, which is always a fun thing for fans. I'm going to give an overview of the different roles in the band, and I'll talk about the different performers that you would see for each of them. I'm not going to talk about any of their actual identities or use their real names, so instead I'll have to use their fandom nicknames, which are always going to be cringy no matter the fandom, but I think it's the best thing to do in this case. I'll probably have more to say about some than others, but I'll put in pictures and clips of everyone. Before you know it, you too will be able to recognize them from horribly pixelated camcorder footage. The show was hosted by none other than the Mad Hatter. He's the lead vocalist for the band, and doesn't play any instruments. He dresses in this tight graphic tee, a color-shifting purple and blue leather jacket with green straps and lining, and these fabulous striped pants with green stitching. I love these pants so much. His shoes are this blue checker pattern. He also has what may be the best accessories in the band, including this sick belt made of spools of thread, these tiny little red leather gloves, a bedazzled teapot belt buckle, and a long scarf, perfect for scarf-pulling shenanigans. His iconic hat features permanently adhered sunglasses, a fancy 3-pronged hat pin, and a trail of fabric in the back. His ginger wig really pulls everything together, and is thankfully far more fun and flirty than the Johnny Depp Mad Hatter wig, in case you forgot what this is supposed to be based on. The Mad Tea Party version is undeniably silly and very much a product of its time, but considering the source material, they did what they could. The Mad Hatter had a relatively high number of performers, with a whopping 6 regulars by my count. Ladybug Hatter, also known as Smiley Hatter. I'm not sure where Ladybug came from, but he sure has a contagious smile. He's got a happy-go-lucky energy that always livens up a show. Rocker Hatter, also known as Steven Tyler Hatter, although I personally prefer Rocker. I hate fandom nicknames that are just another person's actual name. But anyways, he is in my opinion, the definitive Mad Hatter. He's just the best. All of the Hatters are competent vocalists of course, but some of them are really singing these songs to death sometimes. This Hatter though, will just stand there and sing it perfectly like it's nothing. There's also just something about the way he is that makes him so much fun to watch. I'm honestly shocked that he never quite rose to the leagues of the other Tumblr sexy men, because he's exactly the type. I'm telling you, when the once-le girlies find him it's over. Dimples Hatter, Of course named for his dimples. He's also known as Newsboy Hatter. He definitely brings a youthful energy to the role, and has a little mischief in him. Hips Hatter. I've seen quite a few people mixing him up with Dimples Hatter when they're dagging, so don't confuse these two. He's pretty recognizable by his voice, which is a little warmer and deeper compared to the other Hatters. I believe he was named for his signature dance moves. He was definitely a fan favorite.
And as we trick or treat, what fun it's gonna be together. This Christmas fireside is blazing bright, and we're counting through the night. And this Christmas will be a very special Christmas for me.
Diva Hatter, also known as Sassy Hatter. I can only hope he's flattered by these names and not offended. But anyways, he's really fun to watch, and definitely a little sassier than other Hatters, which is refreshing after you've watched as much footage as I have. Jukebox Hatter. Put some respect on his name. This is in my opinion the most underrated Hatter. It seems like he maybe performed less often than the others did, but when he was there he was great.
1, 2, 3, take my hand and come with me, 'cause you look so fine that I really wanna make you mine. Look so fine that I really wanna make you mine. 4, 5, 6, come on and get your kicks. You don't need money when you look like that, do you, honey? Oh no.
The other lead singer of the Mad Tea Party Band is Alice. She and the Hatter each have songs that they sing on their own, and also a bunch of duets that they do together. Alice's outfit is a blue dress with a flirty little opening corset design. She has a pair of black crisscross tights that go over a pair of white tights with a pink diamond pattern that fades out from the ankles. For accessories, she has a bedazzled fishnet glove that she would wear on one arm. It ripped easily, a little headband that matched her dress, and a necklace with a key on it. Her shoes were these shiny red things with a heart on one and a club on the other. The wig that was chosen to go with this outfit was blonde with streaks of different colors here and there. Alice had the highest number of regular performers of all the roles. There were 7 different Alices, and they can be pretty tricky to tell apart. Once you learn their faces it's easier. Amazing Alice. Got her name for being amazing, of course. Such a great singer and is also a fun performer to watch. She's definitely a fan favorite. Rocker Alice? I'm not sure if there's a specific reason for her name or if it just fit the vibe. She definitely brings a different sort of energy to the role though, which I enjoy. She's a baddie. She's cool, a little less girly pop than the others.
I'll be all that I got. Want to love you.
Cupcake Alice, also known as Baby Alice. Once again, I'm not certain where the names came from, but I think Cupcake might have just been the vibe. I believe she joined a little while after the show initially opened, but she fits right in with the lineup.
Take this pink ribbon off my eyes. I'm exposed and it's no big surprise. Don't you think I know exactly where I stand? This world is forcing me to hold your hand. No, I'm just a girl, totally
Pixie Alice, she's my favorite. I just love her voice so much. A lot of the recordings of this band are low quality because the microphones built into phones and camcorders were not great back in 2012, but her voice is so clear and bright that you can hear her above the band no matter how poor the video is. I'm obsessed. Here's some more pictures just because I love her. That Alice. The names are getting a little rough. Anyways, this Alice is definitely a standout. She's a little flirty, a little sassy, and has fun interactions with everyone else. Adorable Alice. This Alice of course got her name for being adorable. I think she also joined a while after the show opened because I've seen pictures of her tagged as the new Alice. It seems like she started around 2014.
I'm feeling sexy and free, like winter's raining on me. You're like a shot of pure gold. I think I'm about to explode. Cross my world into the sunlight, make this dream the best I've ever known. Shining, dancing in the moonlight, take me down like I'm a domino.
Feisty Alice, also known as Miss Alice, she's a little bit unhinged in the best way. I've noticed that there's a lot less footage of her than the others, so I'm not sure if she just performed less often or maybe wasn't on board for the whole run of the show. The Mad Hatter and Alice are the two vocalists for the band, and the rest of the characters each play a different instrument. The rest of the overviews will probably be more photo heavy with less video clips, mostly because I hoard pics of these guys. First up we have the Dormouse, who plays guitar. His outfit consists of a grey tank top with a red velvet jacket over it. The jacket is so strange. It has blue paneling on the sides and white little designs down the middle. The weirdest part is this scrap of fabric that just hangs off of it. I think it was intended as a scarf, but half the time the performers throw it over their shoulder so it's just hanging loosely behind them. For pants he has black jeans with metallic designs on them. You can see him wearing one of two different pairs of boots, depending on the performer. There were the purple boots, which were short and had a flame design on them. And then there were the taller boots, which had a bunch of cool straps and buckles. For accessories, he has this super loose chain, and for hair he has an amazing platinum blonde wig. You may find yourself looking at this eccentrically dressed human man, wondering, how is this a mouse? As with many things in this show, I don't really know what to tell you. His guitar has a drawing of an actual mouse on it, and the back of his jacket has a sigil with a mouse as well. Maybe for some reason they didn't want to put mouse ears on him because that would be too much like Mickey ears. I'm definitely glad that they didn't have the gall to put a tail on him. As far as individual performers go, the Dormouse had a pretty solid lineup. There were 3 main performers who I'll cover first, and then a couple others who didn't play as often. Spike Mouse. This Dormouse is such a sweetie. He's always smiling and just doing his thing. Underrated in my opinion. I have no idea where he got his name from, but it really stuck. Also, for some reason he gets the cool tall boots rather than the shorter ones. Dormouse. This mouse is definitely a little more bashful than the others, but he came out of his shell more over time. When it comes to interacting with his bandmates, he's more likely to be the unwilling participant in shenanigans than the instigator. It makes for a very cute dynamic. Troll Mouse, also known as Billy Idle Mouse, or just Idle Mouse, but you already know how I feel about such nicknames. This Dormouse is iconic. He's one of my favorites for sure. His name is very apt, because troll he does. This man is always up to something, stepping on someone, yelling at someone, never a dull moment. He's genuinely a force of chaos. Also, you may occasionally recognize him in some other roles. There's his March Hare persona, usually called Troll Hare or Air Hare. And then when he's the Hatter, he's called Trifecta Hatter, Hat Trick Hatter, or Troll Hatter. It was pretty rare to see him as these other characters, so it was always exciting when it happened. Those were the main 3 Dormouse performers. The others were far less common, but still cherished in their own right. Sir Mouse, also known as Grandpa Mouse. He didn't play very often, but it's always fun to see him. It's also cool that Disney hired someone older for the band because they tend to stick pretty faithfully to younger people. Shredder Mouse, also known as Rocker Mouse. I think he was pretty late to join, which is probably why there isn't much footage of him. Nonetheless, he's kind of epic. At one point there was drama with people being not very nice about him on Tumblr, but thankfully much of it has been erased by time, and everything left is pretty positive. Nugget Mouse, this name is so unfortunate. I've only seen a couple people using it, but this guy wasn't around long anyways. He did make for a very cute little mouse during his brief reign. Next up we have the March Hare, who plays bass. He has this ornate metallic green vest coat thing that he wears over a t-shirt. On the bottom, he wears these blue and green striped pantaloons, and he has sick green combat boots that are lined with green fur. For accessories, he has a red belt, a little green scarf thing that he ties around his neck, and then he wears either 1 or 2 spandex tattoo sleeves. The sleeves were funny because several of the performers would wear them over top their actual tattoos, and sometimes you could see them through the fabric. The March Hare usually has at least 1 bracelet, but they varied between performers and would get swapped out sometimes. I like to consider myself the leading expert on March Hare bracelets, but if anyone else thinks they're in the running, please let me know. On his head, he wore a 3-layer ensemble, which must have been diabolically warm. The first layer was a green, purple and black wig. Next came some fluffy teal ears that flop around beautifully, and then over all of that, he has a long purple and black bandana thing that he ties around his head and lets dangle in the back. The combination of the pantaloons and bandana really pushes this ensemble over into pirate territory. For performers, the March Hare was in a similar situation to the Dormouse. There were 3 main performers, and then some other less common ones who would pop up every now and then. Jagger hair. This hair got his name from a fun little dance he would always do during moves like Jagger. I would say he's overall maybe the coolest March Hare, and just has a certain swagger to him. He's definitely a performer. He always has 2 tattoo sleeves and usually one black bracelet on his left arm. He has a history of wardrobe malfunctions with his ears, and at one point he completely forgot them for a performance. Also, unrelated but this picture of him is so cute, he looks like a Powerpuff Girl.
And I heard through the grapevine that they have a nickname for you. Are you aware of what this nickname is? Jagger hair.
Mad March. This hair got his name because of the way he is. He's super recognizable because he's always pulling these little faces when he performs, which is jarring at first but very quickly becomes endearing the more you watch. He's such a cutie. I have like 3 million pictures of him saved. He can often be spotted wearing only the right hand tattoo sleeve, and most often he wore a brown bracelet on the right and a black one on the left. March Kit, also known as Baby Hair. He got his name either for being the youngest, looking the youngest, or just being a little guy. I'm not totally sure, but he's my personal favorite. He has this tendency to find a camera and absolutely serve. I don't know what comes over him, but somehow I never see it coming. These two are maybe my favorite Matt T photos of all time. Also, for the first couple years of the show, he was laying on the eyeliner with reckless abandon. It was truly a thing of beauty. God bless. The March Hare eyeliner erasure over the course of Mad Tea Party was genuinely such a tragedy, and of course I would be remiss not to mention that March Kit always has 2 tattoo sleeves and usually just one black bracelet on the left. As far as March Hares go, those were the big 3. They were such a solid lineup, to the extent that I can't even really point to an overwhelming fan favorite. They each had a devoted following. The next few hairs I'm going to cover were the less common ones. Happy Hair, this performer was semi-regular, but didn't have nearly as much fandom presence as the others. I think he was called Happy Hair just because he smiled a lot. On rare occasions he can be spotted with no tattoo sleeves. How scandalous. Groovy Hair, he was also known as New March Hare for a while because he joined pretty late in the game. Generally he was on the shy side, but that might just be in comparison to the other hares, who were genuinely crazy. I don't know much about him because he wasn't around for very long. We've been through a lot of performers. You're doing great. Now it's time for a lightning round. Mostly because my breadth of knowledge is really lacking when it comes to the last 2 characters. The keyboardists and drummers were much harder to get a read on as far as personalities, so there was significantly less discussion of them in the fandom. I'm going to do my best, but I only know so much. The Caterpillar was the keyboard player. For their outfit, the Caterpillar would wear a sleeveless hoodie vest thing with blue and purple caterpillar legs printed on it, and floppy little antennae on the hood. That would go over a black graphic tee. The pants were just black jeans with a pattern that matched the vest. I think they had yellow shoes, but it's hard to find pictures of them. For accessories, Caterpillar had yellow glasses, spandex tattoo sleeves, and then the bracelets would either be the same as the March Hares, or these thinner studded ones. I'm going to do my best for this part, but it's going to be mostly photos because it's really difficult to find good videos of the caterpillars. Cutie Pillar, he was a fan favorite for sure. He's notable for being tall and running around the stage occasionally. He also had at least one performance as Dormouse. Lady Pillar, the fans went crazy for this one. She's the only girl version of Caterpillar, which was super fun. She sparked a whole frenzy online that we will get into later. Puka Pillar, I have no idea what this particular performer did to have this name bestowed upon him, but he was also pretty popular. He left before the end of the show and was deeply mourned. Beardy Pillar, This is maybe my personal favorite caterpillar. He got his name for having a beard at some point, but he didn't always have it. Sage Pillar, also known as Classic Pillar. You see him all the time in videos because he played a ton of shows, especially early on. Crazy Pillar, also known as Ewok Pillar. I don't know why. He also had a moment as March Hare at some point. Last but not least, the Cheshire Cat was the drummer of the band. His outfit was insane. The main component was this leather jacket with a giant Cheshire Cat face on it. The sleeves had frilly little blue tufts going down them. Under the jacket he had a plain blue shirt. On the bottom he had black cargo pants with blue details on them. It's hard to tell, but I think his shoes were just plain black boots. His wig is truly a thing of beauty. I don't even know how to describe it. You'll have to just take it in for yourself. Unfortunately, I know even less about the Cheshire Cat performers than I did about the caterpillars. I don't have much to say, but I will at least go over the nicknames I could find. Evil Kitty. I believe this name was because of the faces he would make. One time Jagger Hare sprayed him with water as punishment for his crimes. Rocker Cat. This is my favorite Cheshire Cat, but I sadly don't know anything about him. He's a sweetie though. Shy Kitty. He is super difficult to find pictures of. I suppose he was probably more shy than the others, hence the nickname, Cat the Drummer. I think they really started giving up on nicknames at this point. Nonetheless, he was a very fun performer to watch. Wild Cat, also known as the Black Cat. I'm not sure which name is worse. Allegedly the Black Cat was a name he gave himself, but I have no idea whether or not this is true. So those were all of our band members. There are probably a few performers and nicknames that I missed along the way, but these are at least all of the major ones. The band played pretty steadily for the first couple years. They would switch between performing every night or only a few nights of the week, depending on the time of year and how full the parks were expected to be. But overall everything was smooth sailing from May of 2012 through the end of 2014. On November 30, 2014, Mad Tea Party played their final show before a 6-month hiatus. The band assured everyone that the show would be returning in May of 2015, but lots of people were rightfully worried that this 6-month break would actually last forever. Consequently, there was a huge effort from the fanbase to rescue the show from being on leave for the rest of time.
Don't you stop believing, we'll be back in May.
I don't think anybody truly knew whether or not Disney originally planned to bring Mad Tea Party back after 6 months. It most likely depended on how successful the show's replacement was. Frozen Fun was a newly announced special event that would take over most of DCA for the winter of 2015. Mad Tea's spot was replaced by Freeze the Night, a family dance party. Obviously, this was both devastating and insulting to the fans. They organized email writing campaigns and posted a ton on different social media sites to show Disney how badly they wanted the show to return. Their Change.org petition got almost 2,000 signatures. A lot of fans were convinced that this was the end for Mad Tea, but sure enough, after a couple months of Freeze the Night, the powers that be confirmed Mad Tea Party would in fact be returning in May as part of the 60th anniversary Diamond celebration. True to their word, the band returned in May, bigger and better than ever. They were now called the Diamond Mad Tea Party Band, which the costuming department celebrated by making some extremely subtle changes to everyone's outfits. For the most part, everyone just had a bunch of new rhinestones glued to their clothes. The Hatter got a new green scarf, and had some frilly gold fabric added to his sleeves. Some other major changes were that the LED screens in the back got an upgrade, they added some new songs to the set list, and they made this snazzy new intro sequence. They also added a horrible Disney-themed closing sequence to the show, by which I mean it was themed around the man himself, Walter Disney.
This is gonna be the best day of my life.
Disneyland is your land. Here age relives fond memories of the past. And here you may savor the charms and promise of the future.
Won't you calling outside my window? You wish upon a star.
This finale song was so bad that I don't even know what to say. But I can't even be mad, because you know what they did to make up for it? They finally removed the abysmal teapot thing. I think it got stripped of its guitar details, slathered in a new sparkly coat of paint, and dumped in some corner for photos. That means they also removed the matching teacup DJ booth, which was replaced with this T-shaped logo stand. This is much better in my opinion, and also made more sense because it was in the center of the stage instead of weirdly tucked off to the side. Diamond Mad Tea Party certainly burned bright, but it burned fast. After opening in May 2015, it ran for almost a year before eventually being closed for good in March of 2016. Bringing it back for a year definitely seemed to lessen the blow of the show's closing, but it was of course still profoundly sad for everyone who had been attending every week since it first opened back in 2012. Some campaigns to bring the band back popped up here and there, but by then many of the performers had started new independent projects, and Disney had already replaced the band's spot with a new event called Jammin' on the Backlot. Jammin' on the Backlot really wasn't much of anything. For the most part it only utilized the main stage, stripped of its theming. The whole party was really just a DJ playing music for several hours straight, and some LED lights. It was immeasurably disappointing to Mad Tea fans, and it was maybe even more disappointing to any lingering electronica fans who were hoping the next event would be more up their alley. Needless to say, Jammin' on the Backlot didn't last long, and was probably replaced with something just as lame. The glory of the electronica and Mad Tea Party days were over, never to return. Now that you've heard the full story of Mad Tea Party, we can really get into the weeds. As you've helpfully already picked up on by now, the band developed a bit of a fandom over the course of its run. In the beginning, the core fan base was mostly DCA annual pass holders who were able to come see the show on a regular basis with their friends. Eventually, these regulars started posting enough photos and videos online for a somewhat larger fandom to form around the band. They were no longer constrained to only those who could attend in person, and suddenly had fans around the world. It was by no means a big community, but it certainly was prolific. Pretty quickly, the community amassed a huge amount of fan art, fan videos, fan fiction, you name it. I think you get the idea. Things got a little weird. For the most part, this was entirely based around fandom. Early on, fans had ran into the issue of needing something to call the characters, other than their official titles. Calling characters the Mad Hatter or the Dormouse doesn't really work all that well for fanfiction, so they ended up borrowing character names from the movie instead. This was honestly the biggest influence that the Tim Burton movie ever had on the Mad Tea fandom. Despite having the film available to reference for lore, most of the fanbase ignored this and chose to come up with their own backstories and personalities for each of the characters. Within the realm of commonly accepted fanon, the Mad Hatter's name is Tarrant Hightop, Alice's full name is Alice Kingsley, the Dormouse is called Malliamkin, or just Mally for short, the March Hare is Thackeray Earwicket, Thack for short, the Caterpillar is Absalom, the Cheshire Cat is Chesser, or Chess for short. The White Rabbit DJ was called Nivens, but this name typically referred to the male version. Overall, these names aren't associated with any specific performers, and usually imply that the person using them is referring to the in-universe version of that character. It certainly wasn't common practice to list a specific performer you were imagining when you were writing headcanons or fanfiction or whatever. I think the only exception was Lady Pillar, since writing a femme version of Absalom automatically implied which performer you had in mind. Not that it would have made a difference in the end, because the fans eventually made gender-bent versions of pretty much all the characters. As with any fandom, shipping was a major part of the Mad Tea community. By far the most popular ship was March Mouse, which referred to Thackeray and Mally. This ship was absolutely everywhere. Alice and Tarrant were another popular choice. Alice and Absalom also had a moment in the fandom at one point. The popularity of this ship was mostly thanks to the song Spiderwebs, in which the caterpillar was able to run away from the keyboard for a moment at the beginning of the song, usually to be serenaded by Alice. The typical bit was for Alice to act bothered by the caterpillars, but specifically with Lady Pillar she would be friendly and have cute interactions. Thus a ship was born. Although it was definitely taboo to specify which performer you had in mind for a fanfic, you had much more leeway when it came to shipping in general. So the separation of fanon and actual performers did get a little dicey at times. This issue was especially pressing because the Mad Tea performers were unusually good at digging things up online. So fans had to make more of an effort to keep things private if they didn't want them to be found. Because of this, a lot of fanfiction was distributed privately by email or hosted on Google Drive, and is therefore very difficult to find. Most of the fics posted on Tumblr were compiled into insanely long master lists, which are now home to hundreds of inactive links. It seems like most of the fics that were once public have since been lost to time. Much of it has either been deleted or sequestered away in deactivated blogs. I've sifted through most of what remains, and most fics seem to be set in roughly the same universe, in which the band members are actual manifestations of the Alice in Wonderland characters. Typically the backstory is that the band members were living in Wonderland for their whole lives, up until they were contracted by Disney to come perform at the park. So this job is their first ever foray into the human world. Also for some reason in almost every fic they are living long term in the Grand Californian Hotel. One notable trope within this little fanfiction ecosystem that I just can't help but mention was something called a March fic. These were based on the idea of a Mad March hare, a reference to the phenomenon of hares becoming super aggressive and crazed during their spring breeding season. This sort of thing is truly an opportunity on a silver platter when it comes to fanfiction. I mean, it almost writes itself. Unsurprisingly, most March fics have been wiped from the face of the internet, but I was just so tickled by the idea that I had to include it. Another strangely widespread headcanon was the idea that Mally is a reincarnation of a previously female version of himself who died at war. This is usually played for angst in March Mouse fics because Thackeray would have drama about Mally's violent death. I honestly don't fully understand the lore of this one, but the headcanon was so popular that I had to include it. The idea of Femme Mally in general had such a wide reach. The idea actually came from Disney themselves, who were originally planning to make the Dormouse a female character. I believe this was the official concept art, but I'm not 100% certain. Either way, the fandom reclaimed her and brought her back into existence. There was fan art, cosplays, the whole 9 yards. This Femme Mally even met the Dormouse. What a strange collision of worlds. Speaking of which, maybe the strangest thing about Mad Tea Party was the general lack of separation between this niche fandom and the actual performers. Several of them were on Tumblr, and some would even repost fan art on their personal social media, which is to say, they were 100% aware of everything that was going on, including the shipping, and so much more. To some degree, this is par for the course in fandom, but something about this case feels especially uncomfortable to me. The number of people actually attending the show was small enough for them to be recognizable, and some of them were known by the performers both in person and online. The performers were so close to all of this feral fandom behavior. It stresses me out just thinking about it. Different people involved with the show probably had very different reactions to this whole situation. Some of them definitely played into the shipping, and probably found it funny and harmless. But I can imagine some of them were probably very bothered by it. For what it's worth, I haven't come across any actual incidents of anyone expressing a desire for this to stop. For a while, there was a big argument in the fandom over whether or not it was acceptable to openly talk about the identities of the performers. People generally cite the idea of character integrity as a reason not to talk about them. Other fans just preferred not to know who was who and would rather suspend their disbelief. In the end, it seems like the conclusion everyone came to was that you shouldn't post performers' names, but it was acceptable to follow their independent projects and support them outside the realm of Disney. A lot of the performers were able to use their following of Mad Tea fans to fund Kickstarters for their own creative ventures, so at least something good came of all this. because of the past drama, I haven't been naming any names in this video. However, I will say that most of the performers played in bands with each other outside of Mad Tea Party at one point or another. It was never truly a secret who was who, because obviously they weren't wearing masks or anything while they performed. So if you run out of Mad Tea content and want a little more, you can always watch their non-Disney sanctioned performances. There were so many bizarre things that I stumbled upon in my trip down this rabbit hole, and there was just no way for me to integrate all of them into the video in a cohesive manner. So these are my leftovers. They are in no particular order. Please enjoy. Number 1. Mad Tea Party had some other employees that I didn't mention, including a squad of hatter hosts and these flamingo guys on stilts who would walk around and bother guests. Number 2. One time the Dormouse and March Hare went on the Dumbo ride together. Number 3. I showed the thumbnail briefly earlier in the video, but somebody made this incredible Mad Tea themed parody of Stressed Out by 21 Pilots.
Wish we had more time at the Mad Tea Party, where the mad ones play at DCA when the lights stress us out. Wish we had more time.
Number 4. Parkgoers with a keen eye could spot a few of the band members performing in other groups around Disney.
Proud and defiant, you'll slay the giant. Go and seize the day. Stand on the odds and don't delay. Minute by minute, that's how you win it. Go and seize the day.
Number 5. I am obsessed with this fan-made Sims 3 video about the Mad Hatter and Alice's relationship. I mean, just look at Sim Thackeray go. I don't know why he appears to be engulfed in flames. Number 6. A certain hatter dressed up as Alice for a non-Disney sanctioned performance. As you can imagine, Disney did not appreciate the use of the costume in this manner, and there was a robust effort to remove all evidence of it ever happening from the internet, but you can't hide anything from me. Number 7. The show had lots of merch options, but worst of all in my opinion were these wannabe Funko Pop Vinylmation figures. Absolutely foul. Number 8. I don't really have any commentary, but look at this tender moment between the March Hare and Cheshire Cat. There's just something about it. Number 9. I probably should have mentioned this in the actual video, but they did seasonal events such as Halloween tea and Christmas tea, so if you see any pictures of them looking especially disheveled, it's probably from a Halloween performance. Number 10. Making mermaid versions of characters was popular back in the day, and someone gave one of the March Hare performers their sea hare art in person. I respect them so much for being bold enough to do this, but this picture haunts me. Bonus. Here's a cursed picture of Who Are You with his legs out. Hopefully this video has been useful to any future Mad Tea Party scholars, or perhaps has convinced you to take an interest in this show. It seems like nobody else on planet Earth wants to listen to me talk about this band any longer, so I just had to make this video to get everything out of my system. If you are new to the band and want to watch some more videos of them, a great place to start would be Nick Turgeon's Remembering Wonderland project, which includes one recording of every song they ever played. If you're more interested in watching fun interactions between band members, I would definitely recommend Brianna Cherry Garcia's playlist. I'll leave a link to both playlists in the description. Brianna made a ton of the artwork and posts featured in this video. Everything was of course a group effort, but she played a huge part in making the fandom what it was. She has a bunch of Mad Tea Party fandom history still available on her Tumblr from back in the day, so if you're more interested in the fan base, her blog is truly a treasure trove of old posts to look through. Also, I can't help but feel like I gave electronica less love than it deserves. Obviously it isn't really my thing quite as much as Mad Tea Party is. but there are plenty of folks out there who hold it near and dear. If you would like to hear a much more heartfelt ode to electronica than my brief crash course, I would recommend Roxy Land's video, which I will also link in the description. She does a great job. Finally, if you happen to be in the know about Mad Tea Party for one reason or another, please comment any corrections on things I got wrong. I would love if you could answer some of the many questions I posed throughout the video. I wasn't around in the fandom when it was still active, so I'm just piecing things together from what I could find. If you know of any other guides that anyone made, or even if you just have any interesting Mad Tea related links for me to check out, please give them to me. I will never tire of learning more about this band.